Can you share how you first got involved with Zoombinis and what drew you to the club's initiative?
I was on the QA team, and also we did a huge Kickstarter. I produced the Kickstarter behind-the-scenes videos.
So I actually was involved in the bringing back of Zoombinis. So it was originally developed in the mid-90s. And about 2015, TERC decided it wanted to bring back the game, partly because we have a large following of people who used to play it as children.
Zoombinis Club is a way to act out the different levels in a controlled environment. But you know how kids are, like not everything's going to be, exactly going to plan.
Welcome to episode 6 of the Zoombinis podcast. Today we are exploring how Zoombinis is making a difference in classrooms and communities through Zoombinis Clubs, a new initiative that blends play, logic, collaboration, and fun. We're joined by Elizabeth Rowe, Director of Research for the EDGE Group at TERC, and Andrea Calvin, who's helping bring the clubs to life across Massachusetts and beyond. We'll dive into how the clubs are structured, what students and educators are saying, and the powerful learning that happens when kids come together to solve puzzles as a team. Elizabeth and Andrea, thank you so much for being with me today. Can you share how you first got involved with Zoombinis and what drew you to the club's initiative?
So I actually was involved in the bringing back of Zoombinis. So it was originally developed in the mid-90s. And about 2015, TERC decided it wanted to bring back the game, partly because we have a large following of people who used to play it as children, who still love it and remember it. And at that time, when it was coming back, we decided to write a National Science Foundation grant proposal to study computational thinking, how it promotes computational thinking in the classroom, and how the gameplay itself can be an assessment of computational thinking. So it's a very rich game. There's lots of dimensions to problem solving that it covers. And so that was my first intro, was through that study about 10 years ago.
And for me, I was working at Fablevision at the time, Fablevision Studios at the time, which was a studio that was hired to help, remaster and bring back Zoombinis. And I was on the QA team, and also we did a huge Kickstarter, and I did a lot of the Kickstarter. I produced the Kickstarter behind-the-scenes videos of showing, what went into remastering Zoombinis.
Awesome. So for the listeners that are new to the concept, what are Zoombinis Clubs?
So I would describe them as a hybrid learning experience that combines the digital game Zoombinis with a set of in-person facilitated collaborative activities focused on problem-solving skill.
Yeah, Zoombinis Club is a way to act out the different levels in a controlled environment. But you know how kids are, like not everything's going to be, exactly going to plan. But it's a different way of approaching the game. So it's not just online, it's in person, where you are a Zoomini, you are a fleen, you are a bridge, and you're acting that out. So that's what you're a troll. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the board game version of Zoombinis is kind of how I wrap my head around it. Perfect. So are the clubs structured? What type of sessions is it like?
Yeah, so I will say that they were designed to be flexible, first of all. So there is the idea of a typical is not, it really mostly applies to sequence and not amount of time, because they were designed to allow places that they only had 30 minutes, they could do something. If they have an hour and a half, they can do something else, or take the same thing and extend it. So it's not just like this is how it goes. But the typical sequence is more like there's like an intro to the game and an intro to the activity, in-person activity, and then they're going to jump in and do the in-person activity. Usually they repeat it a couple of times, at least twice, if not 3 times, depending on what their desire is, what the kid's desire is. And then they go to the digital game play. There usually are spaces for them to play the game themselves. And you can either play it as a whole class to start, or you can do small groups or pairs or individual play, depending on what the particular technology setup is of that place, because that is another thing that varies.
And also depending on the space, like it might look different in a library than it would in an after-school club or a boys and girls club. We really allowed for modification where you can physically be a Zoombini and try to cross the bridge, or you can do desktop versions, like, interactive on a computer, not a computer, a desk itself, tabletop version, where you're moving the Zoombinis in different ways. So when you say club structure, the structure is the kids arrive, they have fun, they interact with the game, and they're collaborating together. But it really is up to how the space is set up and how they want to run their program.
Awesome. Sounds like there's a lot of flexibility in that for it to kind of fit all the different types of opportunities it leads to.
Yeah.
Why is collaborative problem solving such a central part of the club's model?
Because it's a central part of life. That's every work environment I've ever been in. We've always solved problems and done things together and building off of each other's strengths. And that is that's what I envisioned for clubs, is a way to do that in a way that involves movement, involves joy, it involves playfulness, and it brings those things. Those things are inherent in this game, but it brings it out into the room, and so they're not alone. And so when they go to the games, they know they have other people around them that have been thinking about these puzzles too. So that's my short answer.
Yeah, and everyone has a different way of tackling a challenge. And so when you bring, the minds together, you're going to learn from each other. And that's the beauty of Zoombinis, and that's the beauty of Zoombinis Club, is you are, to succeed, you have to work together.
And how has the students responded in working these groups as opposed to individually with the game?
So it's funny. We've done this in a couple different scenarios where we have students collaboratively working together. Like, they will go on a computer and they will play Zoombinis. But what we're finding is they do this collaborative game together, and then they break off and they go in and they play Zoombinis on the computer, the online version. And they're working together still on they're poking the person next to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? How do you handle this? So it's a natural flow that's happening. And we're seeing that students, even playing the game, the physical game together and then going online, you're still having that collaboration going through. And I think the unique way of doing Zoombinis Club is sometimes you can say to someone, you're going to be the bridge and you're going to be the one that's in charge of this. So if you have those students that like to work individually, you're still giving them that individual role of this is what you're responsible for. So it allows that flexibility of the instructor to know the strengths of their kids and help them learn to collaborate, help them learn to succeed individually. And does that make sense?
So I would add to that, it's also what I don't hear. I don't hear, how do I play this? What's the point of this? They know. They sit down and they know. And so they could jump right into the thinking part of things rather than the mechanics and trying to sort out the tool itself. They know what their goal is. And it's nice in that way. That's why we do it beforehand. And also the other reason to do it beforehand is that once they get their hands on the technology, very hard to pull them away from that. So we do it in that order for that reason, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be done in a reverse order. Other people they know their kids.
And so what kind of learning goals are baked into these?
Computational thinking, which is, I would think of it as the way that computer scientists solve problems. Sometimes those problems are embedded into code, but they're mostly logic, right? It's do this before you do this. And, ooh, here's this thing, it's pattern that I see, and I want to repeat that pattern. So I'm going to create a loop or something, it's the ones that we studied in the game itself were problem decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithm design. And if you want more details on what each of those are, I'm happy to, but they are embedded in standards. Those particular skills are embedded in also larger computational thinking frameworks. Those 4 core things are typically in every one of them. So they're kind of foundational practices that in the study, we were hoping that teachers would emphasize them through the activities, and then kids play it and they get stronger at these things, but it's implicit, right? The knowledge that they're building the game is not saying, hey, you're recognizing this pattern right now. It's you're helping kids as a facilitator figure out what the patterns are, and you use the word pattern, and you define it for them if they need this, help with that. So it's a very organic experience with the computational thinking. It's very much baked into the game. But I would argue that you could, without the materials, you could miss those skills. I think the materials really help. So what we call it bridging by the research team, and the idea that the teacher is making direct connections between what they're doing in the game and these formal concepts, so that they get used to not necessarily the language, but the idea of, I'm going to write a set of rules and how to do this, and I'm going to use those, how to solve this puzzle, and I'm going to use those same set of rules every time I encounter this puzzle. That's algorithm design. You don't have to call it that, but pointing those things out, like, do you know that you're making a set of rules? And that's what people who work with robots and other things, that's what they do. And so being able to make those connections is a huge role of the facilitator and the teacher in the space, in clubs and in classrooms.
Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think Elizabeth summed it up perfectly. Yeah.
And what have you observed with the students' approach with these challenges?
The first couple of times through, they are challenging. And once they start developing this sense of, okay, this is the kind of thing I need to look for, or this is the kind of rule that this particular puzzle uses, once they start generalizing a little bit, it becomes a little bit easier. But there are some times, like when kids just sit down to play the game, we saw that we were at PAX East, and we saw a lot of like, oh, I got them all through. I'm done. I've mastered this puzzle. Not exactly. And so there's so much more to the puzzle. But they would go, oh, I've done all 12 puzzles. I've mastered and that is a very surface level entry into the game, which is great because that's what we wanted in a family room at PAX East. We wanted ways for families to quickly engage with the game and jump in. So yeah, generally they get, once they understand the mechanic, if they like logic puzzles in general, they will love this, right? If they're into like only shooter games, like first-person shooter, this is not for them. But if they're interested in things that, like, if they're interested in chess, if they're interested in Sudoku, the other types of logic puzzles, they will eat this up.
And there was one pilot that we did, and we were acting out the level Captain Cajun. And so in Captain Cajun, you sort of sit Zoombinis on a raft, and the one next to it has to have the same, maybe has the same color nose or whatnot. And I remember we were sitting there and we had all the students, and it was like 5 minutes. And this one kid was pointing to everybody, you go there, you go there. And they got to the last Zoombini to place, and he couldn't sit there. But the kid was certain. He's like, I know this. This is perfect. Oh, he couldn't sit here. And instead of him getting frustrated and angry and giving up, all the students were like, well, how can we do this different? How can we, who has to move? And it removed that level of, well, I didn't get it right, I'm done, to, okay, we didn't get it right this time. What's next? And that was kind of fun to see, because so many times when I'm playing games, even with like my nephews that are, 11 and 13, they just will be playing a board game and something doesn't go their way, they're done. But watching these students collaborate together and something didn't work, they wanted to figure out why. And I think that was, and they solved it. And so that was a unique learning experience that we got to see in person.
That's very cool. I love that. So I do kind of want to pivot to the work that you guys have been doing in Massachusetts. Can you tell us about the piloting process in that, and what did you learn from all of those early sessions?
I will say we did 5 programs. They were all informal programs that serve under-resourced communities. So all 5 of them do. We deliberately chose ones that were like in the one rural setting for sure, and one urban setting, and then a couple of suburban. So we had 5 total. I think it was 2 urban and 2 suburban, but you get the idea. Which we were across the state. We were not just in Boston, but we were in the Boston area, with exception of the rural one. So We went in with some activities already having been piloted and also some very brand new activities. So it was our very first time putting them in front of children and trying them with children. So as you can imagine, we learned a lot of what not to do, and how to do what we wanted to do better. And that was a part of the conversation we had with the kids. We debriefed with them afterwards about what would have made this easier for you. And then also we talked to the facilitators who were in the room.
And there was one session where we had the parents there, and seeing the parents, like the mom who was with them, she's, oh, I just want to play a little bit more. And she got into it. But I think the way that we ran the pilots by telling the students, you are trying this out, you are going to give us feedback. And it's sort of, you could see them like straighten up and be like, okay, so from 1 to 5, this is how I would rank this. And they had really positive and sometimes negative feedback on how to improve this, improve it. And it wasn't just, it was good. It really fed into, well, I liked this. I wanted to know more about this. And it allowed us to go back in and change things before launching.
And we often asked, I think we did a survey with them afterwards about like what thing did they like about the experiences the most, and it wasn't always the game. So it was often like the collaboration and the movement. The movement is key, like getting kids up and actively walking, moving around the room. So they're not just sitting with a worksheet. Like that's not what this is. This is them up and moving around. They're some people have the rules, and some people are just Zoombinis, and one person is the guide, like with Captain Cajun, and they're kind of trying to all put everybody in sequence. Sometimes the kids do that themselves. They self-organize. I just think it's a very powerful experience for them. And I was surprised that so many of them, it wasn't just the game. So I did want to add one other thing that we learned from piloting. Well, actually, it was our first user. It was the first person who purchased Zoombinis Club. We went down to kind of do an in-person kind of onboarding with him. And he was asking for very specific materials for him to be able to use that we didn't have. So we are now going back and making those. As an example of, here's what's a typical sequence like, and what are possible sequences that I can use to fit this into an hour. So we're going to, in each one of them, so not just for one of them, but for all 5 of them. And how should I sequence them over 10 weeks? And, like that whole big picture stuff. And then the other thing is drawing computational thinking connections between puzzles. For example, Stone Cold Caves is very similar to Allergic Cliffs and the types of computational thinking you're doing, but it's a little bit different. But being able to, for a person who's facilitating, being able to say, okay, those concepts are very similar to this one, so maybe I want to follow that puzzle up with this one, which doesn't have an activity to it, but the kids can use what they were learning in the prior one on this new one. So we're building that guide too.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good feedback too for you guys as well, thinking like that. And it's not every level in the game is in the clubs, correct?
Yeah. So right now it's 5 activities, 4 puzzles.
And the 5th activity is kind of comparable to the Zoombini creator at the beginning, where because you're making your own Zoombini. So it definitely has a tie to the game. It's just not a puzzle itself.
And when they make their own Zoombinis, are they drawing it? Are they picking pieces? How are they creating their own?
With scissors and glue. We have different levels of doing it. So it might be you're looking at your favorite hobbies and you're getting assigned a type of eye or a type of nose or feet or hair. And they're physically cutting it out, gluing it onto a Zoombini head, and that is their Zoombini. So it has that physical manipulation in the project as well.
And the questions they're answering are all in the form of if-then statements. So if you feel happy, you'll have the pink nose. If you feel sad, you have the this nose. Or a variety. So some of them are based on like socio-emotional learning concepts, and then some of them are more like what's your your favorite hobby is music. You have the skate feet. So all of them are expressed as if-then statements, and the kids get familiar with using that kind of language. And then there's one that's completely, they can create their own rules.
Oh, that's cool. Do you guys have like pictures of the behind the scenes of working like this with the kids?
I believe we have a few, and some of our
right.
Well, that would be cool. Yeah, I think that'd be really good for our socials too, moving forward of sharing that experience, because that'd be cool to see the kids make their own. All right, so moving forward, back to kind of the critical thinking aspects and things like that. What have you observed on how the students approach the challenge? So we did kind of talk about them kind of jumping right into it. Have you noticed any hesitation in the beginning, of awkwardness, maybe things like that? Or what does that kind of look like?
There's some social awkwardness with some of the roles. Like, not every kid wants to be the bridge that sneezes at people. But there are some kids who really ham it up, right? Like, they just really get into that part of it. So yes, there's some hesitation, like in social relationships around that, but that's in classrooms where kids already know each other. And I think also that's true when you're a group of strangers that don't know each other. Although I will say most often they come in groups. They come in pairs at least. So they come with a friend. So they know somebody. But then there's that kind of like, they're middle schoolers, they're becoming they're pre-tweens. So they are very aware of what other people think. So I think in that sense, but so if that happens, that we've been the bridges just to model being really silly. And then we get the kids in. Once they see what's expected of them, they usually volunteer the next time.
You'll always, even with adults, you're going to have people who are just like, I'm just going to see what it looks like, and then I'll join. In my nerdiness, like, I've played a couple of these games with my friends for like game night, because I have a friend that like grew up on Zoombinis, obsessed with Zoombinis. So we piloted out a few things, and I can say, like, my husband was one of the people that was like, I'm just going to watch because I don't understand how to do this. And he's not that type of person, but he watched and then was like, okay, I get it now. I can understand this. So even kids, adults, we're all kids at heart. You're going to have in these activities allow for that. It allows for kids to watch and then jump in, and you might see someone like whispering, hey, how about this? Hey, did you try that out? But it allows, it really is a game about collaboration. It's, and you'll see that as the clubs evolve in this space.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about the clubs a lot as well, is like the game technically is for kids, but adults play it as much as kids do as well. And so with clubs, we did Zoombinis Clubs with a group of streamers, and we are all adults. And it was very awkward at the beginning. Nobody wanted to sneeze. No one wanted to have that like playful side of them until they opened up and had fun with it. And then it was so much fun, and we played it over and over again. So I think it's works for both the kids and the adults. So how do clubs implement or extend classroom learning?
So as I think I was saying earlier, that it's connected to standards. I view it more as an enrichment activity. So it's something that's, you can certainly integrate it into the general curriculum, but it's also something that can be extra. If kids want to do it after school or on their own, that's the nice thing about the web version of the game. They could take their password and code and play it at home, and play with whoever they want at home. So it's not a confined to the classroom experience. I don't know if that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what is your long-term vision for Zoombinis Clubs?
So if I were ambitious, or I am ambitious, but I will say that what got me into this is that I did not have any games from my childhood, digital ones. Well, with the exception of Carmen Sandiego, I would say that I remember playing vividly, and 30, 40 years later, still remember playing vividly. And the number, I think I'm approaching, I hand out pins. If you ever see me at a conference, I hand out pins to anybody who played Zoombinis as a child. And I've handed out over 100 of them. And people will come up and they'll describe Arno, the troll, and they'll make me a pizza. They'll do some of the language, they remember it. And that is, for me, phenomenal. Like that has that kind of lasting power in people's memories from childhood. And I think it's still, because there's new groups of children in a more competitive field of gaming now, but there are more children that still would benefit from this. And that staying power, I think, would be true no matter what, because it's such a good game. And I wanted to, at some point, if I were really ambitious, I'd wanted to have like a cultural moment, like lots of people are talking about it. You see it on TV, like there's books that go along with it. Like you could, all sorts of different avenues that the people are kind of like chatting about it, that is like big picture vision. Like, I don't know how we'll get there kind of vision. But I think that's what the game deserves. And the Chris and Scott who created it were phenomenal. They were ahead of their time. This game is that good.
Yeah, I agree. So like a franchise, we just need to build out an entire Zoombinis franchise. And it's funny because in our socials, we get that a lot too, where adults will be like, man, I thought this was a fever dream. Like, I remember this weird game with this pizza, but I could not put my finger on what it is. And then they see our ads or they see our ambassadors posting and things, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's real. It's still out there. I want to show my kids, and it just kind of builds off that, which has been really exciting to see how they're bringing it into their families as well now. What excites you most about how this model can impact the future in learning?
It's certainly consistent with the trends, right? Like it's meaning making, it's collaborative, it's playful, it's movement based. Like there's so it's not passive, it's active. I think it's consistent with where things are going, hopefully, in lots of places, and it's definitely consistent with how kids learn best. Like it's not a worksheet. So
awesome. Andrea, did you want to add anything to that?
I think looking at, I'm going to reflect back at PAX East in the family gaming room. I think what excited me most about that was seeing the parents that played it when they were kids, bringing their kids in and playing it together, and then seeing the parents that played it as kids, having their parents come in and go, oh yeah, you played that. And so it was this generational thing. And that's kind of cool that it didn't just die, that it continued on, and you still have that excitement, and you still have that, like, the little kid sitting next to the dad, and the dad being like, instead of saying, you got to do it this way, suggesting how to move things and watching their student learn and their kid learn, and having that proud moment that they achieved, they were successful. So I think what's kind of exciting is not just seeing it in the classroom, but also seeing it in families coming together and playing. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely love it. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a fun rapid fire round. So first things that pop in your head when it comes to these questions, favorite Zoombinis puzzle for the group play?
In-person allergic clits, digital bubble wonder.
That one's hard. That one stresses me out.
Pizza pass, because the voices in it are just hilarious. So, yeah.
But best unexpected student strategy you've seen?
Not saying kids have to figure it out. I will say I've seen very elegant solutions to mudball wall, like very elegant ones, like stuff I have not thought of, and I've been working with this game for 10 years. So we did some piloting with kids originally with the game, and some of them had strategies that were just whoa. But I'm not going to say, because that's their job to figure that out.
That's fair. A most creative way a clubs has adapted or personalized the experience.
I have one. Maybe you can add to it, Andrea. So our librarian friends in Orlando, Florida, they, who I believe are going to be on a subsequent podcast, she decided to basically run the clubs with a group of high school students first. And then those high school students became the facilitators. So you're spreading it multiple levels, right? And I thought that was really innovative of her. And she also took one of our other puzzles, not in our games, and made her own mock-up. And so we're taking what she did, we're taking and polishing it, and it's going to be one of our future ones.
I was just going to say that, like, adapting from the community, because I know exactly the level you're talking about. So, yep.
All right. And what's one word that describes Zoombinis Clubs?
Playful. Okay. Yes, playful. Chaotic learning, if that can be something. It can be chaotic, but it's so much fun, Yeah.
And that's the fun part of it, is it is chaotic with all the kids, and them getting to be kids, but also learning in the same time. Awesome. So kind of closing this up, what keeps you inspired to continue this work?
All of the people that come up to me saying, I remember playing that when I was a child. And just so many of them. And that some of them say it helped me become a computer scientist and help, like some of them say that directly, but others are just, I remember spending so many hours of my childhood doing this. And it was so, this was so hard. And, like just that just reminds me of the merit and the quality of this game. And it happens so frequently that I want to keep it going for more generations.
And for educators listening that who may be on the fence about getting Zoombinis Clubs, what is one reason that you want to share with them that they should go for it?
Everything's there. All the resources, all the videos, all the how-to guides, everything is there. It is an easy program to pick up and implement that same day. And that's coming from somebody who had to QA test it and had no idea what the heck I was doing. Everything is there.
I would say the same. It's a way to have fun with your kids, whether they're in the after-school program or in a classroom. And not fun, I would say hard fun. It can be as challenging as you want it to be.
Perfect. So what's ahead for the both of you? Any new projects on the horizon?
More Zoombinis.
Always more Zoombinis.
Yeah. Well, we have an inkling, at TERC, we have an inkling of a Zoombinis board game idea. We'll see if it comes to fruition. Part of that is being able to funding to be able to develop it. So we're thinking about that. But we have an inkling of an idea.
That's amazing. I love that idea. Awesome. Well, thank you two so much for being here with me today. I appreciate your insight on Zoombinis Clubs, where it's been, where it's going. Is there any final words you'd like to say to the audience?
Hip, hip, Zoombini.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.